All right, day 3 begins. Yesterday I got distracted by building out a to-do application for this project. It also serves as an example for something that would be a useful tool within the ecosystem. So it does serve as kind of a thought experiment and a first example. But today it's time to build out the actual environmental repository, the thing that handles the capabilities that are latent in the environments that live around us. All right, so here we go. Do a little housekeeping first. Advertise that I'm actually streaming. Poof. My wife says it's a good idea if I actually have a schedule so that people can know I'm about to stream rather than just saying, hey, join, attack. She's a smart lady. What else do I want to do? I'm going to post. What should I do? I want to post a message to people that live in Charlottesville. Is this good? I will switch to programming imminently. All right, let's do real stuff instead of build another to-do app. Although you gotta see this to-do app, it's amazing. Our Rook, meet Rook, my agent that goes anywhere with me. Meet Obsidian. This is the to-do app that I made. You can move stuff around, which is kind of cool. I'm working on this thing, create skill for operating. Why does it call this? Create skill for operating to-do list. I think it does not update until you do something to force it to update. Holy moly, that's not exactly what I wanted. No. The first thing I do is run into a bug. It is a type to do, it's in progress. Oh, it thinks it's there. Okay, that's definitely a bug of some kind, but not one which I care to deal with right now. Okay, I think I demonstrated yesterday that we can just keep these all on one page. Show notes. I don't know. Oh, yeah. I guess it'd be nice if I shared my screen that I'm working on. There you go. I'm gonna move this into here. And I'll put a date time right here. But this is for a couple days ago. All right, keep notes there, and I'll get rid of all this junk. Delete. Oh yeah, also, since I am streaming on YouTube, I should probably sign in so I can see if anyone messages me, which they did yesterday. That was kind of cool. Now, their name had the word crow in it, so I think they just saw a Corvid related project and jumped in. You should take what you can get. Oh, of course, it doesn't let me sign in. Two-step verification. I'm getting like one more subscriber per day, which since I've only got 74 subscribers is not bad. All right. All right, better microphone. I'll get this stuff all figured out someday. All right, so in order to operate this board, a human would do stuff that you'd normally think of doing with it. But it's an Obsidian, so you can click on these things and actually see the details, maybe sub-to-dos, or I don't know, whatever you want to put inside the actual contents. The contents also tell you, like if it's in progress, you know, what column it's in. You can make any columns you want. And I think you can, in the future, I guess you'll be able to drag these around if you have different ordering requirements. But anyways, the agent should also have visibility into what's happening on this board and be able to interact with it too in the same way a human can. A big deal for me is the ability for a user to have a conversation with an agent and to work on a thing. And those two are separate ideas. It's kind of like when you're pair programming, you don't just talk to someone about it and ask them, hey, how's it going? It's nice to also look at the code, at least back in the day when we actually had code. But I think the general idea still applies. We need work artifacts. And in this case, since everything is in Obsidian, we just kind of tell it, here is what you do. All right, I did read over this yesterday. I'm not going to reread it. I vaguely remember thinking, hey, this is okay enough. So it's time to figure out what's happening to the notion of environments inside Rook. Let's look at some code. Hmm. An environment repository is a list of all the environments that we have on offer. It can be applications, physical locations, web addresses. I keep this one around because I need it for tests. So I guess it could potentially be other things. Events would be an interesting environment. People, in some ways, might be an interesting environment. Like who am I around? How can I interact with people? Now I need to clean out some of the stuff because the way I'm making canonical paths and canonical environment names is like app:/md.obsidian. That's an official one. / and then the vault name potentially. That's where I keep up with people. I'm sure reality will break this down in a little bit, but some of these are old and I need to get rid of them. This is the Macintosh package ID. This is old. I'm going to delete it. This is actually old too. If my environment is my office, I might have different things that I want to do with it. What do I do with my office that is different than my home environment? And this is a good example of a canonical website, but they're nested as well. So like you can have web:/www.wikipedia.org. That's an environment. And you can also go to like a particular page. I forget the canonical addresses for pages. But you can have multiple levels of stuff, and each of these count as like an environment. But none of these are particularly useful right now. So for clarity, I'm just going to kill them. Delete. And lock is what I wanted to do for locations. And let's make sure we're sorta, kinda in a clean state. Git status. I think I quit abruptly yesterday and had stuff kind of hanging out. Yep, there's all the deletes I just did. Added documents, config path. I moved everything for configuration, home.rook. I moved my commit path or my config path into tilde, crap, can't say anything. Also, I just noticed something's dead. This little guy, if I reload the config, then now when I push this, we get my little agent down there beside me. I moved the configuration into the home directory under .rook. Oh, got it right. and cleaned up old environments. Git push. And is this really the only thing I'm going to do? If it is, if it isn't, then I can create a work tree and work smarter with multiple agents. No, I want to really focus on this. I'm not sure if keeping around the earlier documentation is a smart idea at all. Pretty sure it's not, actually. Pretty sure I'm just going to kill everything. Die. All right. This is kind of like my scratch space for creating a product spec for the next changes. Get a new Pi agent. My agent harness of choice. Running GPT 5.4. Probably should bump that up soon. They need to work on their pricing. All right. Today I'm going to think through the environment repository strategy. We need to double check. I can't remember if the environment repository was its own TypeScript module or if it was just this directory at root called environment repository. Also, in the product directory at root, I have some explanation of how I would like the environment to work and how it stores skills and stuff. Read through all that stuff and help me understand the current state of environment repository.
Reviewed environment repository state?
Well, good deal. This all renders as markdown at the very end. I need to get something in I don't know, Macintosh, iOS, whatever, what's it called? Crap, what's the freaking language that all this is written in? Swift, thank you. I need to get some sort of Swift incremental markdown parser. Goodness gracious. It learned a lot. Interesting. Does it appear to be going slower? I noticed earlier when I would paste large chunks of text, it would get slower and slower here. But maybe also when the agent is typing, it's getting slower and slower too. Yeah, that's no good. It'll take it forever. Hmm. All right, finally finished it. All right, what did we learn? Yeah, okay, it's just the repository folder. Oh. So does local environment repository have a base class? I wish speech to text was context aware for stuff like that. Yep. All right, so I talk about it in one of these product files, something that I will re-explain to you guys in a second, but there's basically nothing in code. I have this right here that gets accessed through local environment repository, which is not what we want. We don't want things to be called get skill path and get skill previews, because it's going to be so much more than that. Because you could have MCP servers, or as we just found out with the to-do app, you could have those as well. Something's complicated. If the agent appears in an environment like Obsidian, then that's an environment. It needs to know how Obsidian works and how to install Obsidian CLI, their official thing. But if it's in a particular vault, then it needs to understand how I want it to interact with that vault. Files have certain formats, certain locations. But sometimes environments are known by the things that are there. Like if I have a plugin for a to-do list, then it should be in a sub environment that corresponds to that plugin. All right, see how far we can get. Some of this I don't know how to solve. Yeah, we need to get those consistent. Yep. All right. Also, I think we stuck something down here yesterday. Oh, just the agent profiles. All right, time to get to work. Do I really want to put things in here? Okay, we're going to flesh out the implementation significantly. This is going to have kind of a layered architecture. There will be an API for addressing the environmental repositories, multiple. There will be business logic that, depending on the type of environmental repository, it knows how to access the skills associated with each environment and present it to the user. And then at the actual base storage layer, there is potentially different ways for storing the capabilities. Now, do I want to store it in like a SQLite database? I mean, that's one thing I could do. Or since it's mostly files on disk, then I could just read it, right? I think for today I'll keep it files on disk. We need to create a base class called base environment repository, I guess. That declares the general structure of repositories, environment repositories, and then there are going to be one subclass of that for the time being. Called directory that's wordy, directory environment repository, which corresponds to actual contents that are saved in a directory somewhere. Currently, there are two places where this information can be saved. One is at environment repository in the root of this directory. And the other is going to be in sure. In the future, we can have environmental repositories that grab things from GitHub or that connect to a remote server. There will be other subclasses in the future. The directory structure for both of these is going to be identical, but it's going to be something a little bit different from what we've got already in the current environment repository. In this repo. But what? The problem is, when I first started working on this, I was thinking that every environment is associated with skills. But I don't think that's general enough, because it could also be associated with MCP servers. But even that's not general enough, because it could be associated with potentially applications that work in these environments. Furthermore, sometimes skills in MCP servers and applications logically must be kept together. So it wouldn't make sense to have a particular skill that references an MCP server you don't have access to, or a skill that references an application that's not actually installed anywhere. So we got to figure out a good directory structure for these things. Final note for now, for lock versus place. I want to unify around using lock everywhere in the code base. So we'll need to fix the iPhone code shortly. Oh, I guess I'll mention this too. These two functions. They no longer make sense with the direction that we're going. Basically, the environmental repository. Should I call it base environmental repository or just environmental? Whatever. The environmental repository it'll give you access to capabilities rather than just skills, and paths is a detail that should remain hidden in the environment repository. Some of them use paths, the others don't. Others don't. Have I gone into this structure enough? Okay, so the API level, and then crap, I've forgotten all my words for everything. The business logic level, and then the actual storage level. Let's make sure I can talk about this sensibly. If you respect me as a developer, don't watch me do this. I'm building an application that has like an API layer, a business logic layer, and a like storage layer. Is that the typical set of layers? If it's not, then what should I use? And then what is the typical terminology for these layers? Please be terse with your explanation. Oh yeah, API service repository. I mean, that's pretty good actually. I think I'll skip out this repository layer though for today. Well, here are the rough layers that I want to use. Oh yeah, gosh, I hate how it does that. Copy, paste. All right. Copy relative path. In this file, create a sketch of all the stuff that we've discussed above, but focusing on the aspects that will be useful to implement what we're talking about. Be pretty terse because there's details that we need to fill in, such as the exact structure of the files in the file system, and the APIs for every layer of our application. We'll fill those in next. You can just leave placeholders. I don't want a spinning basketball of doom. Oh, this makes me sad. Oh no!
Sketched environment repository redesign.
Well, at least that went through. Why has my baby died? Oh, come on. Who writes this software? Not me. It's like GPT 5.4, right? Say again.
Sketched environment repository redesign.
All right, thanks, buddy. Oh yeah, I'm painfully reminded that we actually don't have any test yet for the client code. Help, Greg. Greg wrote this code, mostly. All right, what do we got? Is it long? No. Blessedly short. Goal. Yeah, okay, thank you. Yeah, that's true. The environment also has state, also has metadata. Good call on that. What shite. That. Because the environments also can be associated with different types of state or metadata. I bet you there's other things that we'll need to shove in there. So we need to make sure that the file system is easy to traverse. These. Is it gonna get slower? Nope. All right, so now it has that in Spring. API, business logic. Yep. We should. See, I wish there was actually people watching so I could see if we should call it an environment repository or a base environment repository. Wish there was actually people watching so I. Yep. wish I could just delete that, but sometimes the agent sees it deleted and sticks it back. Delete this line. It's covered by the GitHub back repository. Wow, I got the text right when I stuttered. Remote, sure. Yep, repository roots. Note that it will eventually be moved to its own GitHub repository. Let's address this one right now. It will logically be counted as a single repository that is the union of all these sub-repositories. So that probably implies that we will have an environment repository class that is a composite class that can work with multiple instances within it. You know what? Let's also change the name. Base environment repository to just all right. One implicit piece of I had two thoughts at the same time and they attacked each other and double knocked out. When we have multiple environment repositories wrapped inside a single logical environment repository, one piece of metadata that will be implicit is which environment repository this came from. So probably in the future there'll be some config file where you register environment repositories, but we're not going to worry about that yet. I'm going to delete that because it will worry about it. I also forgot about a really important aspect of this. Whenever we're working with Rook, our agent, within a particular environment, we'll want to teach Rook how to interact with those environments. And Rook deals in the language of file systems and markdown files. So it will also have an interface to the local repository, probably the one in well, it's not even probably. The one that's there. But it might be a bit simplified. I'm not sure I want Rook to have to understand the pathing structure that we're creating right now. It should basically just know where the skill directory is corresponding to a particular environment. We'll only allow it to speak in skills for the time being, I guess. Make note of this somewhere in the document. Ah, yeah, see, so smart. What are the precedents and conflict resolution rules of multiple environments, multiple environment repositories that have the same environments? Yeah, okay. Current methods are too narrow for the capabilities, not likely direction, environment lookup, capability listing, manifest access, capability bundle resolution, positive search. Yeah. Yeah, it's really too complicated. One thing about the agent-facing local authoring interface is that it might not even be aware of but it might have the relevant files mapped into a different directory that it has appropriate access to. So it might not see the true directory, just the place where it can play with skills and do things like that. or should it see everything? Because, for example, if it's updating a skill that has to do with an MCP server, then wouldn't it be nice to know what that MCP server... Well, okay, you don't need to know the definition of that. And we don't want the agent mucking around and reading MCP configuration with keys and stuff. Hard problem. Yeah, it already kind of said something along these lines. I do wonder how it notices that this is the original and this is the newer variant. I've seen it, the agent say this several times. How does it infer that? It's got it right every time. And the migration notes indicate that it's okay to be destructive since the environment repository is very nascent. For those... Let's figure out what the missing information is, and the results of this next conversation might remove or alter the last two sections of this document regarding the implementation direction and the design placeholders. I think one of the big missing pieces is the shape of the interfaces at the API layer, the service layer, the repository layer, and the structure of the data in the file system. What are other chunks of missing information that we need to address? Come up with a list of questions. And while it's doing that, I am going to go to a small room and think for a moment. So we'll be right back. These are great. Can you mark immediate implementation direction as TBD and replace the design placeholders with a question called remaining section, remaining section called remaining questions, and make them all to-do blocks. Uh-oh, it did the big screen disappearedy bug. But if I scroll, it comes back. All right, this is actually running the same runtime agent. I'm going to log bugs with this guy. Use GH to read the issues for this repo. And something I just noticed is occasionally all of the text in the chat window will disappear. But if I scroll, it must trigger something that repaints the screen, and it'll all reappear. That's a bug. See if that issue already exists. If it does, then good. Otherwise, create this as a new issue. Now, my Rook agent needs to have tabs so I can jump back and forth and do stuff like this rather than depending on a different surface area. All right, TBD. All right, right. For number one, there's still several things that are TBD. Each environment is associated with many capabilities. A single capability is a combination of 0 or many skills. And of course, you know the structure of skills. They have names and they have this skill markdown. Possible Now what I'm doing is something kind of like what Claude does, where you can say, by the way, what is the answer to this question? And it doesn't interfere with the context or execution. That's opinionated, but nice in this case. I'm asking this thing, my by the way question that I would have asked over there. Find skill creator. Okay. Learn more with your blah 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 skill. Skills. Regarding MCP servers, you can look that up online. Probably this will be represented in the directory as a configuration. Thank you. My wife. Still watching me. Yeah, how the crap do you really want to represent? Capabilities, skills, capabilities. MCPs. And then a capability might be associated with one or more applications. You know what? I wish I could stretch this box up so I can read stuff. Here's a feature request to make a new issue for. I want to be able to stretch the text box in the chat screen larger so that I can see more of the text that I'm typing. Zero or more applications, though most often it will be 0 and rarely 1 and probably never more than 1, but we'll see. The directory should absolutely not have a full application in it, but most likely we'll have some way of installing applications, like instructions that an agent can follow, for example. All right, that was number one. I think this answers several of your remaining questions. So fill in the blanks with whatever I've said, and mark as done the remaining questions that I just completed. And if this has made you think of more questions, then add them at the bottom. But let's not go nuts with that. I want to get through this. Now I want you to write in the document the answers to these questions. Actually, no, you know what? The remaining questions is not working for me. I want you to replace the contents of the remaining questions section with your original list of numbered topics and the questions that exist under those topics. And then what we'll do is go one by one and remove all the questions and replace them with answers. You can go ahead and fill in the remaining questions that I've already answered. Using the edit tool. Make another issue for a bug. I noticed a while back that when the when I pasted a large chunk of text in the text box, it got really slow. And so we did something to fix it. We made it a different Swift class or something. I noticed today that if the agent types a lot of text, then they get slower and slower. And I don't think this is the model. I think this might just be the UI slowing down as each text box gets more and more content. So make an issue to investigate this. All right. All right, I like this. What do you mean by what exactly is an environment record beyond ID? That's what you mean. For the time being, let's just stick with display name, description, and provenance. But we'll have to revisit it later. This should close out the core domain model question. Let's move on. Identity and naming. For identity and naming, are you talking about the naming of the environments? So far, the only thing that gets a true ID is the environment. We're not going to worry about naming bundles, capabilities, or repositories just yet. The environment repository does not have to worry about how the IDs are formed. They just have to adhere to a pattern that I've outlined in other documentation. Type followed by a URI-like path. we're not going to worry about how we handle collisions across repositories just yet. This completes question 2. For question number 3, if the same environment exists in 2 repositories, which can often happen, then when the environmental offer takes place, where we offer the capabilities from an environment, we offer all of the capabilities across all of the repositories that list this environment. Ooh. No, capabilities do need names. Dang it. For question number 2, environments and capabilities get names, or identifiers rather. Yeah, bundles. Maybe we should call it bundles. The environment identifier is basically just type followed by that, followed by URI like path. And the identifier of the capability is Do I like that? I don't know if I like that a bit. It's getting too complicated. I like the idea of bundles instead of capabilities. I think we'll change the terminology after I've had time to process this. For the time being, we're going to assume there is no name collision and address it when we need to in the future. Approval and runtime semantics. Oh, yeah. The unit that the individual user approves is the capability. If the capability is approved, then the internal skills and MCPs in application all get approved as well. If a bundle contains skills, MCP server requirements, and app requirements, they're all going to be present there. Otherwise, it's an ill-formed bundle. So we don't need to worry about partial failures yet. This closes answer 4. Update everything and then come back to me. Nope, not I'll update everything. If I put on some music, how obnoxious is that for the stream? Probably really obnoxious, especially if it's these people. Have you guys heard of Ingénie de Pontronnet? No way I got that right. Yep. This is a real group. They're French and alien. And basically it's this guy right here with a guitar and bass but if you look, it's got twice the number of frets of normal, so it's microtonal. He is like basically flying a small spaceship with his toes on the pedals down here, and this guy is blasting out some very unusual rhythms. But all the cool music people on YouTube laud them as like something that AI can't copy, which I kind of dig. All right, updated. Sure. Before we get to question 5, what is your distinction between a bundle and a capability? Maybe I like the idea of using the word bundle in every place where I have been saying capability, because I don't know what's going to come of all this. So yeah, maybe we should just replace capability everywhere with the word bundle. What do you think? Okay, let's keep the word bundle then. Change this document to only refer to bundle and not capabilities. And let's not worry about approval or runtime loading. That's something that is handled by the environment manager, which we're not dealing with today. But you would have known that if you'd read your documentation. The spec-driven development dream is that I answer this long set of questions and then I just say, go. And it builds it. Not sure that's going to happen. Oh yeah, this is where I think this is also slowing down. If this is long, then I think it's just getting slower the more it writes. Let's watch it. Or is it editing? This file. Okay. Fine, I guess. Ready for question 5. Hot dog. A freaking U.S. Census version of questions. For question number 5, the Rook agent will effectively know where the skills are at for a particular environment. Now, that's just his window into the file system, and it might be a lie. Whatever he writes to will end up being symlinked to the underlying Rook environment repository that's in my home directory. But exactly how we do that is still an open question, and we're just going to keep it an open question, making a note that we need to resolve it before we implement it. Shoot. All right. How do you do this? Show me an example of a file system diagram in ASCII for the docs directory. Oh, well, sure, thanks. All right. All right, I'm gonna see if I can lay out what the environment repository should look like. It's gonna be like app. location, web, and with in-app it's going to be, really I think it's this. All right. Bundles. Oh, md.obsidian is one of the apps. And com Slack, I guess, is another app. Give me a little bit more complex example of a directory, something that has more than one file in a subdirectory. Just give me a random example. There we go. Obsidian. So Obsidian, we have a bundles directory. Oh, so I don't need that after all. There's got to be an easier way to define this stupid thing. Like just freaking asking the AI to do it. Bundles. Don't roll with scissors. Duh. Please. And this bundle is named it's an obsidian vault. So oh man, this is a nightmare. And I'm stupid for drawing it rather than just talking to the agent. Just in case I want it back. Copy path. Let's flesh out an example here in this environment repository. In this document. This shows the environment repository directory along with the top level environment types, app, location, and website. And I want to create a subdirectory for Obsidian. So it would have the canonical path for the Obsidian environment. That's app : MD Obsidian. Oops. Can you go ahead and add that? And see how well it understands it by making it draw it out. Yeah. All right, and underneath that environment, we're going to put a more specific environment for an Obsidian vault called reading material. Here's its environment. Add that as well, please. each of these environments are going to have bundles. So underneath both of them, add a Yep. Under the Obsidian bundle, we're going to have a bundle named Using Obsidian. And it's going to have a skill, skills directory, and apps directory. Inside the skill directory, is going to be, oh, but it's not just a skill, it's multiple skills. Gosh, this gets nuts. Yeah, just do that for now. Do that for now and report back tersely. Don't call me Shirley. Yep. Under the skills directory, I want it to have a skill for using Obsidian CLI. Fake some sort of structure out. Just add the directory structure here. Don't make anything outside of this file. What's it reading? Oh, come now. You know what that said. No, go ahead and add the skill markdown file as well. Let's see if it can figure out my text to speech. It did. Skill Obsidian CLI and blah. We'll also need to add underneath apps. What do we do? Underneath apps, add an instructions.md file which will be human or agent readable instructions about how to install the app that's associated with this skill. It is assumed that the Obsidian CLI skill and the application go together because they are in the Using Obsidian bundle. I guess. Gosh. All right. Let's add some similar example underneath the Reading Vault bundles. This time it's not going to have its own app. It's going to have two different bundles. One for saving documents to read, and one for identifying the next most important read. Bundle, save documents to read. Skills. Yup, sure, that's fine. Wow. For the identify next most important read skill, go ahead and add the references directory and the scripts directory. All right, now I want you to show me with a web example that you understand what we're talking about. Figure out a good website that serves as an example and give it a single bundle that has an MCP server and a skill. Copied, just in case. Yep. Yep. Not bad. All right, this looks like a great example. Use this to flesh out question number 6 in our environment repository document. In the file system structure example, can you add comments at the end of interesting lines talking about how this environment has this ID and I don't know, screw it. Now, what you've done here is probably fine. Actually, pull in the file system structure example into the question number 6 so that we can unify these files together, and then you can delete the file system structure example document. But before we do it, environment manifest low. Environment. To answer your other questions, environment manifest will live in similar dot directories. There's no notion of previews in an environmental repository. We provide users with a preview of the environmental offering so that they can determine if they want to accept it or ignore it or reject it. But that's functionality that is elsewhere. Basically, all it does is show them the contents of these files in a fairly digestible format. We'll talk about that later. I don't know what we'll do about state or metadata schemas. We'll probably have dot directories for those too, but let's just not worry about the details of that yet. 7. How many is it getting longer? Let's skip question 7. We're not going to worry about manifest until we know exactly what they're supposed to have in them. Just go ahead and say something like that in the question. Question 8 is also similarly answered, or maybe too forward thinking for us to worry about right now. We're not going to worry about state today. Search and discovery, which is question number 10. Is something that we'll worry about in the future. For now, the only thing we need is the ability to do a get on an environment and have all the bundles returned. Question 11. Oh, yeah. I feel like the repository and service layer of this application for environmental repositories is kind of collapsed. The service needs to look up in environment and get all of its bundles. And the repository layer is going to receive an environment ID and go to the place on disk in the file system to get the bundles and collect them together. I guess let's go ahead and make both layers, because eventually we'll have a different type of storage. But the service layer effectively is almost a pass-through. The repository layer will go get the files on the disk where it expects to find them and will present it back in a canonical bundle format that we've defined somewhere in TypeScript. There we go. Maybe this shouldn't have an externally facing API yet. Just the service layer is probably sufficient, because the main thing that's going to interact with this is the environment manager, which will be notified of environments, and we'll need to go track down the bundles associated with these environments. Question 13. Eventually, environment repositories will also be remote, and to access information from the remote environmental repositories, it will need an API layer. But we don't need it yet. When we talked about the structure in the file system, that's kind of outlines what makes a valid bundle inside a repository. It needs to have that structure, and then depending on what specific thing we're talking about, a skill MCP server application, then the validation of that content is its own thing. We should validate it on read, and when the client when the agent is interacting with skills for a particular environment, we need to validate it's right, makes sense. This is huge. Migration capability. Since this is a big thing in and of itself, this probably is a placeholder for later as well. The only thing we would want to validate right now is the file system structure upon read. Question 14. We're going to go for a hard cutover. I want absolutely no code that acts as a transitional adapter, because that's going to muddy the code base. We didn't use the existing environmental repository much, so just make sure we hard cut over to the new design we have in mind. And we'll just see what tests and documents break immediately and fix them. iPhone migration from place to location should be pretty simple. I think you just replace a hard-coded string somewhere. Security and trust. Question 15. This is a question for the future. Yes, different repos will be treated differently, trust-wise, security-wise. There will be some sort of canonical repo, but the community can make their own repos, repositories for environmental bundles. But we'll worry about that later. Question 16. Directory-backed systems do not watch. Directory-backed environmental repositories do not watch the file system. Basically, whenever we arrive at a new environment, we get the environment ID and we see if there's any bundles associated with this environment. No caching is needed. Errors should probably be surfaced as a toast pop up in the client, but of course just make the response include the ability to surface errors from the API. Question 17. Fill all that in and then we'll talk about question 17. Nashville AI Tinkers is coming up soon. I manage that little group in town. Do it every 2 months, and we're doing another one at the end of July. All right, question 17. Where does the environment repository class live? Is it a service class or a repository class? What level of the application do you believe it lives in? Maybe both? Uh-oh. Okay, so it's typing more. It's starting to get slow there at the end. Sure, that's fine. Yep, I agree with it. One thing that kind of sucks, I really do like this API service repository data store layer cake. But the earliest pieces of code don't really adhere to that. So I have a feeling our code base would look like crap if we actually deigned ourselves to look at it. Yep. Oh, that reminds me. Ignore that. Instead, I want you to write a to-do issue because the base agent class is supposed to be a generic class, but it has a method that is associated with pi that we need to move somewhere else. I did a code analysis recently that noticed that, and I forgot to save a bug for it. Yeah, I like what it said. I like your ideas. They're wonderful. So what should the API for the environment repository be? So far I'm thinking that given an environment ID, it returns all the bundles associated with the environment ID, or an error if it's illegitimate for some reason, or like an empty array because there's nothing, which is typically the case right now. The results, the bundles should be organized into some sort of structure that kind of mirrors the intent of keeping the artifacts within each bundle together, but also keeping track of which are skills and MCP servers and apps. And at the end of the day, everything that's inside these directories is just text files, either markdown files or JSON or something that is text. Is there anything that I'm missing? Do you have a different opinion? See, he's getting slower. That's not the model. That's a bug. While it's chugging, I wonder if there's anything else I can do with the transcripts saved from these silly conversations I have with my computer. Like, because I'm laying out all sort of bugs and stuff verbally. See, this is yesterday's, and already, let's see, is it in here? Where does it go? Boy, I'm such a dork. Do you see that? Ha. All right, transcript. Freaking amazing that they take the time to transcribe 3.5 hours of me mumbling at my computer. But that's useful. I can take this transcript and I can cut out. I can download the transcript and I can cut out the elements where I'm doing a monologue. And poof, I've got like instant shorts that are sort of okay. And I could post those to Twitter and link to stuff. I can process the transcripts and make sure that I'm wrapping up loose ends, like bugs and stuff I found. Maybe I shouldn't take the time to actually fire off another bug. Maybe I can just get something that extracts all that information. I don't know. Other possibilities. My wife is making dinner and it smells delicious. Sometimes she even listens to these things. Probably not tonight, though. All right. It thinks my opinion is basically right. Thanks, Rook. Oh, sure. Yeah, don't return an error string. Since everybody lives in TypeScript, just throw something. Of course. Record. Yeah, this is good stuff. Let's remove provenance from environment record. And from environment bundle until I understand what they should be. Let's add a new key to the environment bundle, which is the repository, which can be a path on disk or a GitHub repo or something else in the future. What you got, dude? You can interrupt me.
I made this to kill rabbits.
Oh my gosh. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Do you want to show everyone on the internet what you made to kill rabbits? Just don't get that near me. Come here, the camera's right here. There you are. You can't hardly see. See?
Hi.
What is that?
I made this like spear thing. I got my pocket knife, shoved in the end, then got a bunch of more sticks and taped them together.
All right, that's terrifying.
Yeah.
If I was a rabbit, I would run away. And you should run away now too. I've got a little bit more work to do. Then I'll be done. All right. Yeah, validation status seems like it makes sense. Oh, it has one more thing in there. As for the fixtures, let's get rid of this guy. And let's use webconexample.com as something to hold our test fixtures. You can also add a path underneath that. What does example.com actually have in it? Example.com. Learn more. Nope. Slash hello. Yeah. Slash. Michael can join me for a bit. Unfortunately, I'm about to leave for dinner. When did you say this, Michael? Oh, man. Uh-oh. Did that thing where everything disappeared again. Oh, man.
Updated fixtures and repository notes.
What'd you do? Get status. Interesting. All right. I want you to git commit everything with a nice message and push it. By the way, it says my context is 5.7 million. That's probably another bug. What are we reading? Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh. Go ahead and merge it into master and push master. We're just using PRs for documentation. Where is that repo rule defined? Soften the language. Say, before you create another branch, ask if we should put this in a branch or push it to master. Go ahead and update the language in the skill. All right, now commit that as well and push the branch into master. Or merge, as they used to say. And, yes, good. All right, so based on our discussion inside Environment Repository, Let's make sure we get this file. Copy relative path. I want you to create a file right next to it called Environment Repository To-Dos. And I want you to create a fairly detailed set of to-dos using markdown to-do bullets. So that you can cross them off as you get things done. And here's the approach. Create, to the best of your abilities, a reasonable but not over-specific to-do list for how to make these changes. Every time you get something done, mark it off the list. But there also will be times where you find that what you thought should be done is actually a little bit different because the code is not shaped quite like you thought it was. In that case, modify the to-do list. Sometimes you'll also find new things to do. In that case, also modify the to-do list. But always come back and check the boxes as you finish them. If you run into anything that is scary, that you don't know what you should do, if it's just a minor thing, just go ahead and do it. Do the best you can, because we can always undo the code. Everything's committed. If it is something that drastically breaks down what we've already talked about today, then we should probably talk about it. Create that to-do doc. And at the top of the to-do document, add my instructions about how to-do documents work. Queued. I'll just wait till that finishes. The text on this thing is tiny. That's one thing I've got to fix for sure. All right, what are we writing? It's getting slower, right? Wow, it didn't seem to get slower. Oh, I already did it. Well, good for you. All right. Now what? Do you have test updates and documentation updates in there? Okay, cool. Oops, it's another glitch. In that case, get started, get as far as you can. Yeah, we'll do that. All right. Dinner bell has just rung, just in the nick of time. What did we learn today? Was it a good day? Well, I didn't write any code, which is always annoying. And I'm using the new age definition for writing code. The agent didn't write code on my behalf. But this is complex stuff, and I think I had a chance to think through it pretty deeply. There's still going to be some questions that are outstanding for a while. But once the agent implements the notion of an environmental repository, then Rook is going to be able to go into a different location, to a different application on your computer screen, to a different website on your computer screen, different location in real life. And it's going to be able to pull down skills, MCP servers, and maybe even applications, like instructions about how to install applications for those environments. I think it's pretty generic. It's going to work. I think it's pretty generic. Also, we have a notion of a local environmental repository where my agent can actually create skills and just shove it into particular environments. That's going to be useful for working with things locally. And we have the notion of canonical environment repository, currently stored inside the directory of Rook, but eventually that'll be its own separate repository and probably separate service. All right. Well, Rook is cooking, so wish me luck. That's it. Till tomorrow, adventure awaits.